Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Saturday Security Tip. This is Adam with Fear No Evil. Thanks for coming back. Last week we talked about the value of a good protection dog, and I hope you picked up on the fact that I am definitely for protection dogs as a component of your home defense plan or your personal defense plan when you're out on an outdoor adventure or whatever you're doing. Dogs have tremendous value. There's no animal on the planet that does more for mankind than dogs do. They can save your life in a myriad of ways, and if you have one, you are better off than if you don't. All dogs can protect you. Even the little ones, they might just let you know something's going on, or they might let you know about a fire or something else, or they might run off an animal. But we're talking about protection dogs, mainly those that can protect you from a human threat. And so let's get into that. Last time we talked about the value of a good protection dog, and today we're going to talk about the traits of a good protection dog. What makes a good protection dog? So first, we're going to talk about some things that you don't want. These are things that don't make a dog a good protection dog. And as you might have guessed from the thumbnail, by the way, my favorite daughter makes those. Thank you for that. So she made that thumbnail. And so, as you might have guessed from the thumbnail, that running away is not something that you want in a protection dog. So if that's your dog's first instinct, as soon as your front door opens and it bolts, or it's looking for a chance to jump over your fence or dig under it, or looking for a chance to be off leash somewhere so they can just zoom off into the next zip code, well, that's not the quality of a protection dog. That's not something you want. Something else is uncontrolled prey drive. Now, there's a debate among people that work with protection dogs or police or military, whatever. Is prey drive even a good thing? And some people will say no. We don't even want to activate prey drive in a protection dog. I'm not really going to get into that debate too much, but I'm going to say that uncontrolled prey drive is definitely not something you want, because this means the animal just wants to go out and hunt something down and bite it and kill it. That's more of a liability than an asset. That's not something that you want. By the way, a prey drive in general doesn't necessarily mean it's a good protection dog. We had a beagle one time with super high prey drive. Was that a protection dog? No, it wasn't. So you don't want uncontrolled prey drive. Let me just leave it there. Kind of goes along with that, the need to chase and take things down. So like Irish wolfhound, Scottish deerhound, those kind of things, they want to run something down and tackle it and take it down. That's not what you want in your protection dog. If it's trying to do military and police type things like running off and attacking somebody, or chasing somebody down and apprehending them, that's not protection either. So those are not traits that you want in a personal protection dog, or a dog that's going to protect you and your family at your home or while you're out and about doing fun things. Next thing is large size. It's not necessarily a trait of a good protection dog. So something like the English Mastiff. If you're living in a small space, it might walk into a room and not know how to back out. So it's definitely not going to be agile enough to get around your little apartment and protect you. Now, if you have a house out in the country, out in the woods, and you got plenty of space for that dog to roam around, and you're more maybe concerned with protection from animals than people, then that English Mastiff might be better for you. But other dogs like the Newfie and the Great Dane, yes, they're very big. But they're, people that know, that are into dogs, that study their characteristics and their personality traits and how protective a dog is or isn't, know that, Newfie or Great Dane's probably not going to hurt anybody. So, if somebody's casing your house out or checking you out as you're out on a walk, and they see your Newfie or your Great Dane, they don't know anything about dogs, they'll probably leave you alone. But like, if I wanted to go somewhere, I certainly wouldn't let a Newfie or a Great Dane stop me. So large size is not necessarily uh, a good protection dog just because it's big. And then the last thing I'll mention is excessive barking. Yes, when it comes time to protecting you against a perceived threat, yes, by all means, bark your head off, uh, and loudly, ferociously. But if the dog barks all the time, then it kind of defeats the purpose. It's like the boy that cried wolf. It's like car alarms. Nobody, car alarms went off so much people stopped paying attention to them. So excessive barking is not something that you need in a protection dog. So what do you need? What does make a good protection dog? Well, as you might have guessed from the first thing that I said, doesn't make a good protection dog. When I said running away, staying near you is kind of essential to being able to protect you. Do you know the first dog that was created specifically for personal protection? That was a Doberman, guy in Germany, tax collector, carried around a lot of money. He said, you know what? I need protection. I need something right by me that's going to make sure I don't get hurt while I do my job. And so he took a bunch of breeds, and I can't explain that all that went into it because I'm not a breeder. But he created the Doberman specifically for personal protection, and it is also known as the Velcro dog because they stick right by your side. They don't want to be more than a few feet away. So that is a main characteristic. What you want to look for in a protection dog, it has to be close. Otherwise, how can it protect you? Next thing is it's got to look the part, because most of us just need a dog for deterrence. If you actually need one of these $50,000 highly trained protection dogs that we know exactly what it's going to do, it's proven that it's going to bite, it's proven that it's going to respond to an out command in various situations. If you actually need one of those, I feel sorry for you. I'm sorry, really. But most of us just need a dog with good deterrence value, and so it needs to look the part. I call it wearing the uniform. So some of the top dogs everybody knows, even people that don't know anything about dogs, know that a German Shepherd, a Rottweiler, a Doberman, they look the part. They know what they're there for. They know that they're there to protect you and your property, your family, or whatever. So they wear the uniform. There's other dogs that definitely don't come across as the friendly, cuddly, approachable type, even though people might not know what they are. Like our dogs, we have a Cane Corso, Italian Mastiff, and a Dutch Shepherd. Now, if my daughter's out walking those, and somebody is thinking, well, can I put her in my van and get involved in some human trafficking here? They're not going to know, most likely, that that's a Cane Corso and a Dutch Shepherd, but they're going to know I'm not messing with her, right? Because they definitely look the part. They're wearing the uniform. And so there's other dogs that don't necessarily wear the uniform quite as well, but if you're in a situation where you just can't handle a protection dog, a dog that might do something in an emergency, then if you're looking for something to fool people, again, we're talking about deterrence, then you might think of something large and something dark, like a black lab, chocolate lab would be much better than a yellow lab. And this is where your Great Dane and St. Bernard type dogs might come into play. So you want a dog for deterrence value, but you don't want specifically a protection dog that might do something. Then get something big and dark, and that'll probably fool a lot of people. So it's got to look the part. It also has to be under control. So your dog should look balanced, trained. It should be following commands. As in the military, we talk about military bearing. That means you got your game face on, you're looking professional, you're following orders, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Even though you might think the officer giving you an order is an absolute imbecile, you're not going to show that. If it was a lawful order, you're just going to take care of business. Military bearing. So that's good in a dog too. And police officers have the same security officers have the same type of thing going on, where when they're on duty, they're switched on and they're ready to take care of business. A lot of times, so people say, well, stay frosty, which means you're emotionally detached and you're just going to take care of business no matter what. So that's the kind of thing you want in your personal protection dog. Those are good traits. So it's got to be under control, and you want a good threat display, or posturing, as it's sometimes called. So suppose all the deterrence, the fact that you're walking your Rottweiler and you're out enjoying life out in the park, and somebody sees you with your Rottweiler and they still decide to press their luck and to get in your space and threaten you. Well, then what you need from your dog is a good threat display, which means it's barking, it's growling, it's acting like if you take another step, I'm going to tear you to pieces. Now, it might not. It might not even have that capability. But what you need at that moment is a good threat display. You need that guy, that attacker, to think that dog is going to tear them apart. So you need a good threat display. You need good posturing. And we want things to happen on the lowest end of the force continuum, or continuum of force. And we talk about that in law enforcement and security circles. So how that goes is, it's a way to figure out how to respond to bad behavior. So sometimes we want the bad behavior to stop. Sometimes it does just because the good guys show up, and that's called officer presence, and that's the lowest level. And there's a bunch of people rioting or whatever, and the police cruiser shows up at the flashing lights, and everybody says, "Hey, I'm out of here." We're done with that. But they've changed their minds just based on officer presence. So, and that's on the lowest end of the force continuum. Then there's verbal commands, and there's varying degrees of those. Then empty hand intervention, which could just be a guiding hand on the back, or it could be, forearm smash to the face or whatever. And then there's non-lethal things like the baton or OC spray. And then, of course, you have lethal force. We're talking about guns and other things that could kill somebody. So the best experience I had in personal protection security was handled at the absolute lowest level. It was just officer presence. Somebody showed up that was a threat, and I intervened just by getting up and moving in his direction. And what do you know? He decided to leave. It was great. I didn't say anything. I didn't touch him. I didn't go for a weapon. Nothing. I got up. He knew that, party was over. It was time to stop. It was time to leave. And the situation was resolved. So just like that with your personal protection dog, we don't actually want them to bite. If we can get if we can have the situation resolved with a good threat display, that's awesome. A guy came up, got into your presence and threatened you, and your dog did what it was supposed to do. It barked and growled and carried on, and the guy said, "All right, I'm out of here." That's what you need in a good protection dog. You need a good threat display. And then you need the right balance of friendliness and aggression. So, if your dog is too friendly, it's acting like a golden retriever, it just wants to play and be happy and lick everybody, never met a human it didn't like, well, that's not a good protection dog. On the other end, if it's too aggressive and just wants to kill and tear up everyone and everything, that's more of a liability than an asset when it comes to personal protection. That's not something you want either. So, for example, me at work as an armed protection professional, if I come across like Mr. Rogers and I'm so friendly that, I'm not deemed as a threat by the bad guys, well, that's not going to help. But if I'm so angry and hostile and aggressive looking that the people that I'm supposed to be protecting are afraid of me and won't approach me either, well, that's no good also. So there's got to be the right balance of friendliness and aggression. So those are the things to look for in a personal protection dog. It's got to stay near you. It's got to look the part. should be under control, following commands. It should give a good threat display when needed, and it should have the right balance of friendliness and aggression. So in all that, did I say anything about it needing to bite? No, I didn't say a word about that, because as I said, most of us don't need a trained bite dog. Most of us just need the deterrence. The last video, I gave 3 examples of our dogs protecting us from thugs or from a snake, and there was no biting involved. There was no direct physical intervention at all. Yet they did their job and they protected us. So some people in the are in the canine realm and talk about protection dogs would be like, well, did they bite? Were they trained to bite? Otherwise it doesn't count to them. I say, if the dog barked and growled and alerted us and gave a threat display and that solved the situation, then we were protected by a good protection dog. Most of us just need what's called a psychological stop. So, for example, when it comes to armed conflict, if security or law enforcement officer was forced into shooting somebody that was shooting other people, for example, maybe the officer shot them in the leg. So are they dead? Are they incapacitated? No. But a lot of times they will choose to stop fighting. They'd be like, you know what? Price is too high here. I thought I could get away with this, but now I got a hole in my leg and it hurts and they're probably going to do worse. So I'm out of here. That's a psychological stop. They could have kept fighting, but they chose not to. And that's what we need out of our protection dogs. We need to change the mind of the attacker with that dog by the deterrence value and the threat display of the dog. They just need to look and say, I'm not messing with that person with that dog. That dog looks like it's going to tear me up. That's what most of us need. Bite training is good for an out command, mostly. If you have an untrained dog and it decides it's going to sink its teeth into an attacker, you might not be able to get it off. But if you have bite training, you're able to tell the dog out or off or whatever the command is, and it'll stop. And so it's good for that. It's good for the exercise and the discipline. Not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's usually not necessary. So I hope that's been helpful to you. And I got one bonus tip. Maybe you got a Doberman, Rottweiler, German Shepherd, Caucasian Mountain Dogs, something for protection, and there's absolutely no chance it's going to hurt anybody. Don't ever say that. Don't tell your friends. Don't post it online. Don't ever let those words come out of your mouth, because you lose all the deterrence value that you had. You need that mess around and find out factor for your dog to have deterrence, to be a good protection dog for you. Hope that's been I hope that's been helpful to you. If there's anything else I can do to help you stay safe, check out my website at fearnoevil.us. Oh, one more thing I forgot. As far as when we're talking about chasing someone down. So, if your dog leaves your property and, takes somebody down 300 yards from your house, that's not protection. That's not what you want. You want it to stay close. You don't need it to chase somebody down and apprehend. For example, if somebody breaks into your house and is threatening you and your family with the threat of death or severe bodily injury, and you take a firearm and you defend yourself from them in your house, that's protection. That's defense. But if they break in, they kick down your door and they realize that you're there and they turn around and start running away, and you calmly go to your safe, get out your .303, chamber around, look down your sights, calm your breathing, take careful aim at their back and slowly squeeze off around into their back at 300 yards, that's not personal protection. And neither is your dog chasing somebody down the street. Got to stay by you to be personal protection. Now I'm ready to wrap things up. See you next week.